Hello everyone, this is CM Kosemen again. I'm back quite soon to plug this channel into some more recent and attractive events so that I'll shamelessly get more viewers and attention. So here we go, talking about a new and zoologically, evolutionarily, adventurally themed movie. As you would know, it's King Kong Skull Island, and the video says it's gonna be my opinions about Skull Island, but I have to confess that I have yet to see it. I was thinking about actually not seeing the film because, I thought it was gonna be a kind of trite and maybe banal. So what I did was I did some homework, basically watching all trailers and online resources available on it. So rest assured, this podcast will not contain any spoilers, but it will contain my opinions about what I think this film is like and some of the creatures in it, and basically, in an ideal world, ultimately, I will discuss how I would make King Kong if I had unlimited funds. Wouldn't we all wish that? Anyways, so I haven't seen the film, so I will refrain from making harsh judgments. It's really easy to say something is good or bad or whatever, but it seems from what I've been able to see that this is kind of aimed at a more popular audience than even the last King Kong film in 2005. And it seems to hinge more on character attitudes, situational comedy, and this kind of 70s nostalgia, which seems to me a more millennial theme. Kind of 70s is seen as everyone is very gung-ho, like everyone has a character and an attitude, and if you watch certain scenes in the trailer, people even have like certain stances they pose in when they're like talking to each other and something, which in the film could be really kind of overladen with tropes, or it could be a vehicle for good comedy and characterization, and I should have seen the film before commenting too much on that. So that's one interesting deviation. I mean, people have more kind of attitudes, and even though this film is supposedly set in the 70s, the Vietnam era, the jokes, the phrases, the things people say, they all seem to be more of a transplant from our recent decades. I mean, even some of the phrases some characters use in the trailers, they are not much in line with 70s lingo and jargon as far as I know, but they seem to be, again, transplants from time. And this is an interesting phenomenon I see, not just in this film, but in many films made in the recent era. They seem to be all these soft reboots and actual reboots. And in each of them, I hate to use this phrase, but the main characters are replaced with a kind of millennial. And he or she or they are always more kind of spunky. They have neat comebacks and kind of like this more attitude, more blasé, kind of almost in every soft reboot and or every hard reboot, you see characters with more attitude and judgment that producers either hope will somehow resonate, I hate this word as well, with the audience, or it might even be a worse phenomenon. The producers model after themselves. So this is an interesting trend to notice in contemporary popular cinema. We are far out of King Kong territory by now, so we are gonna quickly return to it. So that's one point, characters and the sort of millennialization of characters in each reboot and rehash or remake or whatever. And of course, this is a phenomenon of the times, so we can't judge it too hard, but God, it gets annoying sometimes. More on King Kong. Okay, creatures, of course, that's a big draw of this thing, isn't it? I mean, everyone wants to see. This is basically a gladiatorial battle. You want to see the beasts fight each other, you want to see the beasts fight people, and that's what we pay for in this kind of film. Mind you, I'm not judging this in any way. It's not a good or bad. If I'll probably go and see this film, so I don't think it's a bad thing, but that's the kind of generation-old attraction of these creature films. Even in the first King Kong back in 1930s, people had this kind of gladiatorial attraction to see these giant beasts battle and hash it out. And obviously we have no shortage of players in this film. We got the giant Miyazaki type ox thing coming out of the water. There's this kind of hints of, I think its name was Gigantactis in the last film, the giant spider, and something that looks like an enormous stick insect. And that swarms of these flying things which one of the characters swings a samurai blades at, and it's like bleeds with green goop. The goop is green, obviously, because it's a kind of film trope too, actually. If bad things bleed, it's almost black, green, or dark. And if good things bleed, it's always red, the color which we come to fear. So that's also an interesting thing to note. And obviously, I think it was a kind of studio decision to make the bat bleed green, because, you know, if you hack apart a real small animal and it's like red blood all over, that's too cruel. It's funny how these animals are cast into these roles as good guys or nemesis in all these films, you know, and then, but of course, if it was a real life confrontation between people and menagerie of strange animals, the roles wouldn't be so clear cut. Usually, I think it would look like a massive and protracted and kind of banal scene of poaching and animal killing if people and any group of extinct animals were pitted together by some kind of miracle. And more on creatures, you know, what I noticed that, before moving on to everyone's favorite creature in this film, the skull crawler, I have to vent my spleen about one point about this kind of Kong is king and these kind of natives with some sort of bad tattoos out of some, I don't know, kind of, if you're in California, they look like they have these kind of, if you're from California, you would know this kind of Humboldt County stoner type tattoos all over their faces, and God, it's the most stupid looking. One thing that really got me mad in the trailers was that, so okay, the guys are in this cave and there's this kind of character reveal of this Kong is king, and you see that he is king because these natives up and made some sort of psychedelic music festival type of cave art, and it's basically this kind of slats of stone perpendicular to the ground, and if you look at them at a certain angle, they have like this kind of Banksy type graffiti-esque portrait of King Kong, so you know it's there, God. And God, this is so infuriating. Are these designers, it's not even about the producers because this is a cosmetic decision, are these designers so shallow and so pitifully stuck in their own time period that when they think a cool piece of cave art, it has to be some sort of gimmicky perspective trick? And they're so blind to notice that these kinds of perspective tricks are only popular in our day and age because everyone is carrying around a camera in their cell phones. You notice that illusions like that are really hard to pull off without a single vantage point offered by cameras in everybody's familiar use. So it's like a kind of, they discover this Stone Age tribe and community, but they have kind of this Instagram type of art that if you look at it from a certain angle, it's cool and it's Kong and it's a portrait and he's screaming and it's full of attitude, while it's so shallow. I mean, who hired these maybe it's not the designer's fault either, because they tried to make that shot and that scene resonate with the viewers. Anyways, again, the movie probably is better than this one scene, but if you look at real cave art and the real way it moves and affects people, or these designers obviously have never been to a cave. They probably did a lot of research on screens, on computers, but if you look at cave art, the drawings themselves are actually quite primitive. No wonder, it's just this kind of blob on the stone. But the scale and the texture of a cave, it's quite a different thing to see an artwork on a screen, an artwork on a little screen, an artwork on a big screen, and then to actually stand in front of an actual cave wall, 3 meters long, 9 meters long, and then there's this one big blanketing godly figure. And it doesn't need to be sophisticated. It doesn't need to have this sort of stupid, gimmicky Instagram perspective tricks. But if they had just this kind of one blob of a kind of giant ape shadow black thing, and next to it were smaller people, and it was kind of, 3 meters long or whatever, that alone could have been much more moving. But anyways, all those natives and their culture seems to be, as Darren Naish says in his podcast, it seems to be just ticking in a trope box for the Kong series, because they go in there and there has to be a kind of worshipping native population and whatever. But again, like in films, I'm thinking about scenes where cave art was really moving. There was one tearful scene in The English Patient, out of all movies, and they take shelter in this North African desert cave, and there they see this like tiny figures left on the cave walls by the earlier civilizations that lived there. And the film is a kind of wartime romance movie, but that scene with that kind of music, it really is otherworldly, And then even in the last Indiana Jones films, the Crystal Skull, which many people hate, so Indy and his friends go and discover Atakor, this completely fictional city, and there they have this kind of, again, wall art of aliens domesticating people and teaching them how to farm or something. And even that reveal, it's also accompanied by some really good music. So that's really striking. And what else am I thinking? In Prometheus, in my opinion, an otherwise forgettable movie, there is this kind of one scene where they reveal that in every world culture there was this 5 stars, but even those little, like, very simplistic figures, if presented in the nice light, that's where a scene of cave art could be used as a really mystifying plot device. But anyways, enough about cave art. But God, that Banksy crap, really, they had, that kind of took a whole chunk out of the movie. But the film seems to be a fun and more character-driven film. So again, I'm magnifying a pet peeve here, because I'm interested in cave art too. But again, it was so weird. So anyways, onwards to creatures and onwards to Skull Island crawlers. And there's a comedic moment in the trailers where I call them crawlers, but they're just, it sounds dumb when I call it this way, whatever. So these animals, they're actually a direct reference to the original King Kong, where King Kong battles this kind of stop motion Ray Harryhausen animated bipedal serpentine creature for a shot. And it seems that the designers took that and kind of went berserk with it to come up with these nemesis creatures. And these animals, they seem to have the head of a mosasaur. They seem to have the head of an ancient marine reptile, a giant lizard. They seem to have the body of a suburban bodybuilder or bench press guy with the elbows with spikes for no reason, and then the rest of the body is like a serpent. In the history of films, as far as I know, they remind me somehow of the Chronicles of Riddick and the kind of not the Chronicles of Riddick. Pitch Black is the name of the film, and there you have these cave creatures that they're again. They have this kind of torso-like bipedal shape, and they shuffle around in these arms/legs, and the rest of the body is just one long tail. But those animals were designed by the master Wayne Barlow, and they also have wings, so it's an interesting thing. But these Skull Island crawlers, so they seem to have also bits of dinosaur thrown in. And again, talking about Wayne Barlow's art, if you're not familiar with this, Google it. Wayne Barlow is a great creature designer, and these Skull Island crawlers somehow also resemble the animals in Wayne Barlow's 1990 book Expedition. So again, they look like a hash between a bizarrely and unnecessarily human-like body and a lizard-like head and a tail. One thing that really interested me in the shots is that King Kong is punching one of these crawlers, okay? Chum, chum. And then it's screaming, as every movie animal screams unnecessarily. And inside the throat, you see this kind of batches of leathery almost teeth. And the tongue has not 2 but 3 flanges. So, it's a kind of contemporary Hollywood badassery. They take something and they multiply it. So it's like, it's not the Death Star, no, it's a planet, and it's the Star Killer base, and it's not a forked tongue, it's a triple forked tongue, and it's not an animal with teeth, it's an animal with 4 rows of teeth. But these rows resemble, Google penguin throat or penguin mouth if you want. So these structures resemble the throat leathery teeth of a penguin or some other bird. They look more suited to a strange kind of filter feeding diet than to a kind of biting and chewing diet, because with that many teeth you will never get to bite in properly. It seems that these Skull Island crawlers, whatever they are more suited to a kind of fish eating, filter feeding thing, and for some unknown reason they are pitted against Kong in this episode. So there's my pet peeve against them. And what could they have evolved from? Okay, let's go out on an exercise of speculative zoology. Why not? These animals, what could they have evolved from? They're gigantic. They're always jumping around, so they seem to be warm-blooded, but obviously reptilian. But truth be told, they don't look like anything. So I would put the point of divergence at the earliest date vertebrates crawled out of water. Perhaps even some of the more primitive fish. There's a group of fish named placoderms. This kind of armored fish that lived before the age of modern fish and vertebrates. So these placoderms, they had an armored front part of the body and a kind of more elongated eel or catfish-like rear part of their bodies. And some forms seem to have these kind of jointed fins, so their front halves look like lobsters and their back halves look like, I don't know, a catfish or an eel or something. So if one could speculate, maybe with a lot of hindsight and lots of grains of salt, you could say that the Skull Island crawlers are extremely derived forms of placoderms that have adapted for a terrestrial life, that have independently evolved front legs out of those armored joint legs, and that have independently evolved a warm blood. And the only remnant of their armored carapace-like front halves are now the jaws, which do look kind of bony and knobby and crocodilian. And they're also, I think, judging from their throat teeth, they're either fish eaters or some sort of filter feeders, and for some unknown fiat, they're out here duking it out with King Kong. So I think they seem to be this kind of maligned and badly cast creatures. So that's my opinions. It's been a 20-minute combination of rants and speculation on Skull Island based only on the trailers. I will see the movie and I will have my own opinions, but I'll keep them to myself. The film is probably entertaining. Go see it. Now, here comes the fun part. What if the master of Hollywood said, "Are you CM Kosemen?" And I said, "Yes, master, I am CM Kosemen. We are giving you unlimited money and unlimited budget and all the screenwriters at your disposal. And how would you remake King Kong, or how would you make a Kong movie?" I said, "Master, thank you. Let me drink some water." Okay, so this is fantasy territory now. Everyone likes to have unlimited budgets and opportunities to do things, not just in movies, but anything, works of art, cities, lifestyles, architecture, whatever. We all like to kind of build our own fantasy version of things once we get to see them, and this is obviously easier said than done. So this is why I'm just going to talk about this. So if I was given an unlimited budget and unlimited opportunities to make a Kong film, how would I make it? This is a good question. So there's one character in the trailers. He's played by, I think, John Goodman. I might be wrong, but I think that's him. And he's like this kind of very worn out, cynical kind of conspiracy theorist guy. He reminds me of a strange cross between, believe it or not, John Hammond of the Jurassic Park fame, Alex Jones, the conspiracy theorist, because he's like a member of a global organization, because if we don't keep these creatures down, they're gonna come up and get us. And then he also reminds me of this kind of 1960s and 70s kind of European, utopian, eccentric pseudo-intellectuals like Erich von Däniken, who believed in ancient astronauts, and also Bernard Heuvelmans, the kind of grandfather of cryptozoology, they say, but his writings are full of kind of flights of fancy, and his zoological knowledge, even for his time, is not up to spec, and he kind of built himself a kind of cult-like career. I remember I read this on the Trail of Unknown Animals, and at the back cover there was a picture of him looking at the forests of Borneo or wherever, and this is a kind of very kind of sweaty, almost colonial looking European dude, and the caption said, "He is more than ever convinced that unknown animals are lurking out there." And it's a kind of weird, eccentric dude with a kind of chip on his shoulder, it seems, and a kind of a cult-like zeal to discover or do things. So that's what John Goodman's characters evoked in me. So when I'm designing my King Kong film, it all starts with this, okay? Bernard Heuvelmans' character, let's call him Bernard for now, he says, "I am assembling a crew of researchers and expeditionaries and whatever." So they go to Skull Island, wherever, with this kind of womanly character. Now they go there, Skull Island. It's full of strange creatures, and that's the appeal this trope had on me, to be honest. Skull Island, it's like every animal from every period of Earth's history, mutated, sideways paths of evolution never before taken, full of strange things. And there was one scene in the 2005 King Kong where they fall into the sewer-like pit, and they're battling this array of this kind of creature after creature. There's these like giant wetas and at least 2 or 3 kinds of giant arachnid, giant tapeworms, and it's like this unending slugfest, okay? Now, that was one scene where I almost had a kind of intellectual ejaculation. I mean, it was always like, this is too good to be true. Why can't the movie be like this all the time? So that's how I would do. Bernard Heuvelmans, a weird European guy, assembles a weird group of Euro eccentrics or whatever. I'm not good with characters, so I would hire a top-notch character writer to research and write all these characters. But one of them is a kind of weird woman, and I would have her be a member of this kind of zoology researchers cult. Kind of like, do you know this movie The Master with Joaquin Phoenix? It's almost like this kind of Scientology type devotee, this kind of doe-eyed. So one of them is this lady. So they encounter King Kong. King Kong is not a giant monkey, okay? He's like an almost too human-like big ape with some sort of anthropoid. It's not a kind of caveman either, but it's a kind of weird sideline. Imagine a gibbon or an orangutan evolved to be a parallel human, and he's big and very tough and muscular, but Hellboy-sized or human-sized, like big human-sized, okay? That's my King Kong. So, King Kong meets the crew. Somehow, Kong and this kind of weird cultist woman fall in love. And there's the sex scene, and it's gross, and it's kind of so wrong, it shouldn't be happening, but it feels so right, and I would have this filmed like one of the David Cronenberg movies, where it feels actually like a marital affair or an act of incest or I don't know, zoophilia, but it's like so sweaty and liquids and screaming. And so I wouldn't film this scene just for gratuity, because I am into this kind of stuff, but not just because of that, because it's a plot device, because there's this forbidden love between the woman and Kong, and then the strange things begin. Somehow the woman is abducted by Skull Island crawlers, okay? But these crawlers, they are not these giant monsters. Well, why does everyone make things so big? Big doesn't mean better, it just means out of context and out of human scale. I mean, these film monsters are getting so huge these days that they're losing all sense of human character and human relatability. You see this mountain-sized ape falling in love with a woman. The ultimate objective, or one of the ultimate objectives of love, is sex. How are they going to have sex? And it doesn't even need to happen on screen, but how would you fall in love with with a mouse? It's absurd. They're moving out of scale with these films. So anyways, cult woman and parallelly evolved simian humanoid King Kong have sex and they fall in love, and it's wrong, okay? But somehow the snake people arrive, the Skull Island crawlers arrive, and these are not giant things. They are actually, in my dream movie, they are kind of these like snake people. They are like the Nagas of the Indian mythology. They're like a half snake, half humanoid. So once again, I would keep the Skull Island crawler trope. Yeah, they got like a kind of long eel-like body, but 2 arms, like that of a human being. The chest is definitely, in my opinion, not humanoid. But they are like kind of parallelly evolved intelligent species of skink, in my opinion. So these skinks, because Skull Island is a wild laboratory of kind of evolution, so these skinks are as intelligent as people, but they have a completely alien frame of mind. So they come in slithering through. There it's like a bit of like Aliens type scene where they abduct this girl, like in Aliens, the 1986 movie. The girl is dragged down the tunnel. So again, these like nude skink people abduct the kind of crazy girl from Kong's reaches, whatever. So that's why I wrote the sex scene. They have to have sex because now Kong is crazy and he wants to rescue them. So he follows them into their shaft, and then the crazy Bernard Heuvelmans gun guy and other people are following them too, because you need a kind of frame of human reference, because it wouldn't be as fun if it was just one ape going through these tunnels, So okay, Skull Island in my universe has these caves. They go through the caves, like crystal cave, okay. Now the cinematic orgasm begins. It turns out that all these weird animals are possible on Skull Island. You know, Skull Island is what, like the size of Hawaii, and there's not much room for evolution there. You know, how would all these giant dinosaurs and Miyazaki type giant oxes and gorillas evolve? It just doesn't make ecological sense. It would need the size of a planet or even more, okay, to evolve these things. So therein lies the rub. So this Skull Island has a portal leading to the inner world. It turns out, and our characters are shocked, it's like, even I had not expected to see this. It turns out that Skull Island is a portal to a concentric series of inner Earths, and there's not only an hollow Earth, you know, with as much inhabitable area as the world, but there's another one inside it, another one. It's like onion skin worlds. So Kong is going crazy, and he's following the skink people, and he's battling all sorts of creatures. It's like giant insects arrive, and I don't know, some sort of weird feathered dinosaur bird people with blowguns, and then they are more like, I don't know, other weird mammals. There's like giant calicoteers, this kind of all sorts of dinosaurs, amphibians. There could be even weird things, I don't know, like giant crocodile-sized conches. And basically, after the sex scene and the abduction period, the rest of my King Kong, because I have unlimited funds, is a 5-hour-long slugfest of King Kong and the European explorers tracking the snake people and the abducted crazy girl in this world of caves over and over. It's like that slush pit scene in the 2005 King Kong, but more. And there's all this kind of practical effects, and you see worlds upon worlds, and they're just kind of tracing and whatever. So then that would make my day, you know. It would be a really fun film to make. It would probably not gross as much, but it would have a cult following, but if only. So Kong battles through these worlds, you know. It doesn't take just 1 or 2 days of action. Snake people are very treachery, and it turns out when they reach the innermost realm of the world, they are confronted by the masters of all Earths. These are like these godlike intelligent things. They're so derived in terms of evolution, they don't look like anything we know. They probably look like, I don't know, elongated mountains glowing in the dark with tentacles. They look very Lovecraftian, you know. And then they reveal that it's these creatures that are living in the worlds inside worlds. And as evolution in the exterior world progresses, they take all these sample organisms every glacial period or now and then. Every thousands of years, they take them, they speciate them, they mutate them, and they have the power of changing living organisms. And they are actually maintaining this inner Earth as a garden of all varieties of evolutionary possibility. So not only there's like a world 5 or 6 times the size of our globe inside the Earth, accessible through Skull Island, but it's actually managed by these Lovecraftian gods whose self-imposed religious or like philosophical mission is to derive intelligent forms and as many varieties of life from everything that evolves on the world. They're like, imagine if you will, kind of, they're like the librarians. Not only the librarians, but also the fan fiction writers of evolutionary history. So it turns out they ordered the snake people, the Skull Island crawler skink people, to abduct the girl because now they want to make a sampling of Homo sapiens humanity, and they want her to be their seed, and they want to derive I don't know, 1 million more races from her genes and settle them in the kind of uncolonized continents of the inner Earth, inside the inner Earth, inside the inner Earth. And then it's a big reveal, and I don't know, how would the story progress? You can also give me your impressions. Maybe they rescue the woman and they get out, whatever. Or maybe they enable King Kong, who is a derived monkey, and the woman to actually culminate their love and have a race of semi-human hybrid people who go on and multiply in this inner earth. Or I don't know, maybe something else happens. Maybe it turns out the skink people are unwilling servitors of these derivative gods, and they help the skink people escape their clutches or whatever. Or maybe the Bernard Heuvelmann's guy wants to, I don't know, smuggle in an atomic bomb and they have to stop them. It's like that film The Abyss by James Cameron. I don't know. So that's all my opinions and all my derived ideas from King Kong. I hope you like them, guys. Whew, this type of YouTube broadcast sure is invigorating, it's motivating. If it was just movies, I would be compelled to act at the camera, but now I'm just speaking and the ideas flow much more freely. Please comment, please write your opinions. How would you film King Kong? What did you like or not like in the Skull Island film? How would you finish this amazing inner world King Kong David Cronenberg film that I just concocted for you? What animals do you think could exist on Skull Island? Please write them on comments and we could all build on this body of knowledge. I think that was that, you know. Go see Skull Island. This graffiti thing was really horrible. The designers don't know their cave art from their Banksy, but that's a forgivable thing. And now I'm really, wow, hooked on this idea that, you know, if unlimited King Kong budget, CM Kosemen's King Kong Gimby adventure. Maybe one of you could write this book as a fan fiction. I would love to read it. If you look at the comic artwork of Simon Roy, that's an amazing Canadian cartoonist friend I have. If anyone could do this plausibly, it would be him. He would make this story as a cartoon. So Simon, if you're listening, heads up, maybe the publishers will take attention, or maybe not. Maybe this will be just a digital campfire story where it will always be more interesting in you guys' minds than in any kind of realized form. That's that. King Kong, bish bash bosh. Have a nice day, all of you listeners, and I will be among you soon. Bye.